Hello everybody and welcome to today's video. I get to give you a first look at the new Story of Seasons game today, and of course, as a fan of the series going back to the original Harvest Moon, I do play all of these things and I have been looking forward to this one a great deal. Now, as a side note, remember, it is confusing, but as confusing as it is, the old school Harvest Moon became Story of Seasons a few years ago due to licensing rights and so on, and the new school Harvest Moon, of which there is a new one coming out this week as well, is a completely different series, because of course they had to confuse everyone with these naming conventions. But anyhow, point being, this new one, Welcome to Olive Town, is the continuation of the original Harvest Moon series, and I absolutely love it so far. What you are seeing here is very much an early hands-on. I have been busy with Bravely Default and Neptunia and various other JRPGs, so I haven't had too much time to get into this one in full just yet, but I am playing it now, and I thought I could use this video to talk about what it is about Harvest Moon and Story of Seasons that I have found so appealing over such a long period of time. Because remember, the first Harvest Moon actually came out on the Super Nintendo, and it has been a series that has endured on. And I think I will also use this video to talk a little bit about the cultural implications of it and why it is perhaps such a iconically Japanese series. The footage that you are seeing is from the first in-game week, where you will just learn the ropes of how to play. You will start to clear away your overgrown farm, because at this stage of the game it is very much an overgrown farm. And you will need to upgrade your tent from the tent to a simple wood cabin, which becomes your home and base for the good first portion of the game. What I will say quickly before getting into the crux of the video is that even by the series standards, this game does a really wonderful job with onboarding you to all of its various systems and tasks quickly and in a stress-free manner. The little olive town that you get to explore and the people that you get to meet within it are also a delight. And I do love how the loading screens are populated with in-game photos, which I do think other players took. I think there's a communication system in here, which I'm not sure how it works exactly, but the photos that you can take in-game end up getting uploaded to a cloud, I guess, and then other people get to see them on their own loading screens. I think it's a really neat kind of communication effect, and it has this scrapbooking effect that really endears you to the town's laid-back lifestyle quite quickly. The only technical issue that I have with the game right now is that the loading screens are obscene in terms of their length. The loading times are obscene and they are frequent. If you open a door to go into a shop, there's a solid loading screen. If you go back to your farm from town, there's another loading screen. If you go into the mine to do a bit of mining, there's another loading screen. And they're all quite lengthy. Now, the photos that pop up do go a long way to giving those loading screens some kind of variety and making them interesting to look at, but you are going to need to be a patient sort for those loading screens not to eventually start to drag. With that being said, I am a patient sort, and I do love this game already, and I love Story of Seasons as a whole, and of course Harvest Moon as well. A lot of people compare these games to Animal Crossing as they are laid back, hyper casual and relaxing life sims. Only Story of Seasons, to their thinking, has some basic objectives around earning money via farming and, of course, eventually getting married. I think there is some truth to that in that comparison, although I do think it also overlooks what the respective series aim to achieve. So, for example, Animal Crossing offers a very specific type of escapism. Its goal as a game is to remove you from all worldly concerns and to simply put your mind at ease in something that is completely abstract to the real world. It's almost like a virtual Zen garden, and that's why all the characters around you are animals. It's not just because they're cute, it's because it actually suits the game's intent and design. There's no meaningful economy in the game. Yes, you do have to pay Tom Nook back with the bells that you earn, but there's no risk that you're going to run out of bells, and they're an accumulative thing. There's no kind of expenses and day-to-day costs that you also need to manage. And there's also no real relationship system to deal with. You can't get married, and you don't have to deal with those kinds of pressures of building up a relationship with another character. Story of Seasons is superficially similar, but it comes from a very different place. As you are all probably aware, city life in Japan is an intensely competitive and high-pressure environment. It means long work hours in heavily concreted cities, with massive social and economic pressures. It's why some people in Japan turn to become hikikomori, which is the kind of shut-in people. They can't handle the environment that they're in a lot of cases. And it's also why there's a plunging birth rate within the country. The people in the cities just don't have the time to be family-orientated people. It's also why more than a few Japanese people are now contemplating a move to the country, and in doing so, they're typically looking at farming with a desire to live what is essentially a simple life. Now, I didn't just make all of that up off the top of my head. There is a lot of substantiation to back it up, and there is an excellent article on Japan Times that I will share in the description box below this video that talks about this as a kind of 101 explainer for you. There's a trend for younger and younger people to make inquiries into moving into rural areas for work and lifestyle reasons in Japan. Many are now finding that a compromise in terms of splitting their time between the city and the country is the ideal way to go. They call it the O-turn, and as the article describes, it basically involves using the time in the country and working the land as an opportunity to reset after spending time in the city working on the career. A lot of Japanese are now finding ways to make this happen for them as a way of keeping themselves in balance. Story of Seasons is a series that is designed to speak to these O-turners. It's not so much that it is pure escapism as it is an idealized fantasy behind honest hard work and self-sufficiency. It's about celebrating small communities where you know everybody, rather than living in big towns or cities where you're faceless to most of them. And where Animal Crossing is about filling the space around you with all the toys and treasures that you acquire along the way, Story of Seasons is more about living a comfortably frugal lifestyle and not having too many possessions, because the act of living is reward unto itself. In other words, while Story of Seasons is a fantasy, the series has always had a very strong moral and ethical core that cuts to a very powerful Japanese sentiment. And as consumerist as the Japanese culture has become, especially those who live in the city areas, it's never quite managed to overpower this strong countercultural respect and desire for simple living that so many Japanese also share. I often think that the appeal of Story of Seasons is a little bit lost on the West, and Harvest Moon, of course. I know it's popular enough because these games keep getting localized and people talk about the cute animals and the relaxing gameplay, and it's just this peaceful, easy-to-play thing. But I think the cultural relevance has been lost a little bit, and that's largely because out here in the West, we have a very different understanding of what country lifestyle involves. To put it bluntly, out here agriculture is much closer to being exclusively big business, or at least thought about as such, than it is over there. That's not to say that there aren't big agricultural businesses in Japan, because of course there are. It's a population of over 100 million. They've got a lot of people to feed and there's a lot of money involved in doing so. But if you flick on NHK World, for example, you will constantly see stories of small communal farms within towns and even cities, or individuals or family farmers working plots of land for small-scale production over many generations. The only time our farm industries tend to make television or the news is in regards to what's happening at that big end of town with the really big farming businesses and the debates around genetic modifications and so on and so forth. That's the conversation that we tend to have with our agricultural industry, and that means there's this fundamental difference in how we understand the lifestyle and why people would take on that lifestyle. Even if you were to look at a Western produced farming simulator like Farming Simulator itself, there is still this scale of production tension in those games, which you don't see in Harvest Moon. Harvest Moon is very much about feeding a very small few people. You get to ship off some turnips, but it's only 10 turnips, Whereas with Farming Simulator, I mean, it's trying to be a much more serious farming simulation, but it is, again, the point of farming in those games is as a big kind of business opportunity, whereas in Harvest Moon it's more about a lifestyle thing. Anyhow, that is enough musing for this video. I would love to hear from other fans of Story of Seasons and Harvest Moon or Farming Simulator, which I know I just said in a negative light in this video, but I actually do love Farming Simulator for what it offers as well. Let's talk farming games, I guess is the point I'm making here. I will have a more substantial preview up once I have got a bit further into the game, but again, I didn't have the chance to do so. This is just footage of the first couple of hours of play. And of course, I will have a full review once embargo has lifted. Thanks as always for tuning in. Be sure to mash that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed this video. And please consider backing me on Patreon. You can do so for as little as $1 a month. Or if you're feeling extra generous, you can of course contribute more. And that support will ensure that I can continue to grow this channel and finding new topics and videos to make. Otherwise, have an awesome day everybody, and we will see you at the next video.